A couple weeks ago, I posted on Instagram that I was opening up a Q&A, and I let you ask basically anything that you wanted, and today I'm finally answering those submissions. I'm going to be going over as many questions as I possibly can throughout this video, and by the end of the video, if I didn't answer your question, at least hopefully I answered one close enough to where you can still get the answer that you were looking for. So we're going to dive in, answer all of your questions in just a second, but before we do, my name is Austin, you're watching Make Pop Music. We do videos like this every single Friday, so if you like it, make sure that you subscribe. Also, we are doing our weekly giveaway, so you have 3 days from the time that this video is posted to leave any comment down below, and we will pick a winner at random next week on our Instagram to pick any sample pack, preset pack, or MIDI pack from our website, makepopmusic.com. All you have to do is leave a comment in the first 3 days of this video, and we will post the winner on our Instagram at makepopmusic. Let's dive in so we can actually answer some of these questions because we have a lot to go through. Question number 1, how would you rebuild your music production business if you had to start over today? I think that I was in such a weird position where I never really meant to become a full-time music producer. I just made music because I love doing it. I got good enough to where people started wanting my help and offering to pay. So I think if I were to start over from square one, it would be just make music that I really like making, get good at it, just work on my craft, do stuff that like fulfills me. And then if that turns into a business, if that turns into a living, great. And if not, music is something that whether I make $1, $1 million, or no money whatsoever, I'm probably always going to do it. So to me, I am not nearly as business-minded as a lot of the people that you might see on YouTube. I think that if you want to get into producing, get into it because you love it, you think that it's going to be fulfilling, and if that can turn into a business, great. You can always find a manager later, you can always get a publishing deal later, you can always start a YouTube channel later, you can sell sample packs later. But to start, I think it would really just be about like foster that passion, foster relationships, link and kind of grow with local artists and find things that you have kind of a prolonged experience with. I'm not big on just like turning around projects and then never talking to somebody again. So if you're getting started, try that. What are my thoughts on Pro Tools? So I don't use Pro Tools. I don't really like Pro Tools. I'm a Cubase guy. I'll use Pro Tools at another studio if that's what they have. It's fine to like track in and edit in, but to produce in it is super uninspiring to me. I don't like that they're a subscription model only for a DAW. That's kind of wild to me. And I think that there are just so many other DAWs that have so many cool features that Pro Tools still hasn't implemented. If I were to ever use something besides Cubase, it would probably be Ableton because it's completely different. Or it would be something like Studio One that's so similar to Cubase but just has its own little quirks and features. Pro Tools, not really interested in for me. How do you deal with creative blocks? I feel like I have many ideas yet none at the same time. I think creative blocks come when you're just spending more creativity than you're consuming. And so what I mean by that is like if you're just in the studio all day, every day, cranking out songs, you're going to start to kind of run out. Your tank is going to run dry. I think it's really important to go out, live your life, listen to new music, watch new movies, hang out with friends, make new life experiences, because those are the things that when you get back into the studio, when I'm sitting at a session, whether it's for myself or for an artist or for a YouTube video, I'm thinking every day, as soon as I walk into the studio, what am I feeling today? What do I want to talk about today? What do I want to write about today? And what are the best tools and methods to kind of get me there? So between, listening to new music and kind of coming up with new techniques, watching new movies and kind of seeing life experiences that aren't your own, hanging out with friends and having really meaningful, deep conversations, those are things that I think all kind of refill your creative tank. And if you're just working, and you're running out and you feel like your creativity is coming to a block, maybe just take some time, experience life, experience art, journal a little bit and kind of see things that feel inspiring to you. I would say don't force it. Living with an organized schedule doesn't affect your creativity process in a bad way. I think what they're asking is like, is there ever a point where I feel like I'm so organized that creating becomes more of a chore rather than something that like you feel really passionate and creative about? And for me, I would say that I am organized, but I'm not like overly meticulously organized. I'm not the person that's like, I eat breakfast at 9 a.m. every day, and then at 9:30 I do this, and then at 10 a.m. I go for a run, and then at 10:30 I need to do this project to this project. I'm more so like, here's a checklist of shit that I need to get done today. I have the entire day to do it, and if something takes a little bit less time, I can move something up. If something takes a little bit more time, I can move something back. But other than that, my organization is more so, people have paid me for projects. I need to be respectful of that. I need to show up when there's sessions. I need to get people their files when they're expecting them. But outside of that, I'm not so organized that I feel like I become like this robot just being like, okay, well, right now I'm going to go write a chord progression and then by lunch I'll write drums. I just let things happen as they happen. I think that over analyzing and over structuring your creativity process can be detrimental, at least for me personally. So for me, it's more so just determine how much time I have in a day, determine how many things I have to do, and then kind of set little goals here and there of like, oh, I shouldn't work on this project for more than like 3 hours. I shouldn't spend more than 20 minutes dusting the studio. I shouldn't spend more than 45 minutes filming a YouTube video, things like that. I would say I'm not overly organized, but it can get to the point where if it's just becoming a task list, yeah, it can get really, really tiring and you can burn out super quick. What's something many people would be surprised to find out about you? I don't know. I feel like I'm pretty open and honest. I guess I'll just go with like a fun fact. When I was a kid, I was in 4th grade, I think. I did a statewide competition for like history and state history in Virginia, which is where I lived. And that competition had like a couple kids from every school district. I think there were like 150 kids total. And then what you would do is you would take a written test, and then the top 15 would go on and do like a Jeopardy style trivia. So I finished either first or second in the written test in the state, and then I went and did the on-stage trivia, and I actually came third because I got out on the question, what is the Virginia state fossil? And I had been studying forever, but that wasn't on any of my study lists. So I finished third in that competition. I think I was robbed. I was expecting to get first, if not second. But yeah, that's something. I used to be a little history nerd. This is a great one. Have you ever had clients not like your productions for them? Yeah, for sure. Like, you're going to work with so many people. There are going to be people that don't like what you do, and that's fine. I think that's where communication comes in. I've definitely sent first drafts or second drafts or even third drafts where it's just not really what they're looking for. And if that's the case, it's more so like, all right, let's regroup with an artist and see, why is this not feeling like what you want? What are you wanting that I'm not hearing? What am I doing that you're not expecting? And kind of just reestablishing the boundaries of that project. Because if I send something and it's not at all what they're looking for, I'm going to be confused as to how I misread the brief that bad. However, sometimes there's just ideas that I have that I think are the greatest idea in the world, and the artist really, really does not like them. And that's fine. Like, at the end of the day, my job is to show them things that they probably wouldn't think of. But at the end of the day, it's their song. So if they want to do that, great. And if they don't want to do that, that's also fine with me. As a producer, you have to kind of put your ego to the side. If you're going to collaborate with others, you have to know, I'm going to have a lot of ideas that don't make the cut. I'm going to have a lot of rejection. I'm going to have people that just really don't know how to use their words, and they get really anxious about getting a first draft that doesn't feel like what they want. So they might come off a little bit harsh. Don't take it personally. It's just making music. It is not that serious. But yeah, there's definitely been times that I've turned in productions that they didn't like. There have been times to where the communication just wasn't there, and I've had to just refund projects and move on. It's not that big of a deal to me. Some people are the best people to work with ever. Some people I just don't mesh with, and that's fine. It's always going to be the case in every field that you ever work in. It's just a little bit different when you're kind of a contractor, like a music producer. So yeah, I mean, if you turn in something and you don't get good feedback, that's fine. Don't take it personally. Try to figure out where you need to go from there, and then just dial that in. What are the best methods for adding clarity and loudness? I think that clarity and loudness can kind of be opposites. I think that when things get louder, they're getting more compressed, they're getting more squashed, low end and, high mids are kind of starting to take over. However, I think that the key to getting something really clear and open, but still being loud, is being really particular about where everything is going in the mix, right? You want a spot for those guitars. You want a spot for that synth. You want that kick drum to cut right through, because then you can have everything be a little bit higher in the mix where it's not really competing. It's more so coming together like a puzzle. So I don't think of a mix as like baking a cake. Like, you put the flour in, you put the, sugar in, you put the eggs in, and then you mix it all together. I think of it more as like a puzzle of like, we have vocals, we have drums, we have guitars, we have effects, we have reverbs and delays, and how are those all going to come together to make one really beautiful, tight, cohesive puzzle? Because I still want every element to be heard or at least felt. And so when you start pushing things too much into a mix, it can just become one big jumbled up mess. I think that a big thing is just really nailing your EQ and your compression and your levels just to get a pretty solid static mix. And then it's just doing things like automating, doing things like letting special things have their moment. Maybe you pull back a guitar so a vocal shout can come through. Maybe you pull back a lead vocal so a synth line can come through. It's just finding these areas of kind of like giving and taking, and kind of having that seesaw inside of your mix where there's always something at the forefront, but it really just depends on what the goal of that song is to determine what that forefront element should be. And then in terms of loudness, it's just about being smart with things like clipping, limiting, compression, saturation, all of those things where you can shape transients so they don't hit, like your peak limiter too hard, or you shape, the release of a kick drum to where it feels a little bit bigger, even though it's not registering bigger on something like a VU meter. That is super, super important. Just finding that relationship of transients and sustain and release and how a song breathes, kind of dialing into the song tempo and seeing, is this going to be something where everything needs to be really fast and snappy? Or is this going to be something that's a little bit more laid back and that kick drum can be fluffy and take up more space? That guitar can be a little bit roomier. You just kind of have to look at every song individually and see, what does this song need? And if everything can kind of, like I said before, have its own little space, I think it's easier to get that loudness as long as you're not demolishing it somewhere along your chain. What is the main difference between producing music as an artist versus producing music as a music producer? I think that the main difference is that as a producer, when you're working with others, my job is to make that artist feel the best about their song as they can, right? My job is not to do everything that I want to that song. If that's the case, it's my song. When an artist hires me, it's just, what in your perfect world, what is the end result of the song, and then how can we get there? When I'm making music for myself as an artist, it's whatever I want to do. It's completely subjective. It is literally just, it can be as crazy as I want it. It's a bit more freeing. That's why sometimes I will make music as a solo artist, or I'll make things for the channel that never come out. It's because I just like sitting down and creating and having no parameters and no boundaries, because a lot of the time I do have pretty tight parameters for artist briefs or writing sessions or tutorial styles. And that's great. It can be really good for your creativity and your discipline to like have something on a piece of paper and think this is the end result. However, if you're making music as an artist, I think you should just go in and kind of let whatever happens. That's when you get to go in and be super introspective. You get to, process a guitar like a vocal. You get to process a drum like a bass guitar. Like, you can do weird shit, because as an artist, there is nobody else that you have to listen to. Whereas a producer, you can suggest all those things, but at the end of the day, that artist has the final decision. That's kind of how I look at it. As a producer, I'm trying to facilitate their song. As an artist, I'm trying to just bare my soul and do whatever the fuck I want. What is the first channel strip or compressor to get for a first-time analog user? My first one was forever ago. It was like the Art VLA or whatever. It's like a couple $100. I would say that if you're gonna dive into the world of hardware, I think learn what you like software-wise and then figure out what you're looking to get out of that hardware-wise. So for me, I know I use a lot of 1176s. I know I use a lot of LA2As. So that's what I got. As far as a channel strip, I love the Rupert Neve Newton channel that I'm using. It's got a really good clean preamp. It's got a really, really nice EQ. It's got a soft compressor in it. It's got the Neve silk, so you've got red and blue silk. So for me, that channel strip for the price is probably the best one on the market. I also have a Heritage Audio HA81A, which is like a 1073 style preamp and an 81 style EQ. So you do have that parametric EQ. It really just depends on what you want. I would say kind of find your style, find your sonic aesthetic. And if that is CO1Bs, then grab that. If that is LA2As, then grab that. If that is, an HG black box, grab that. It really just depends on what you're looking to do and what you feel like you're not able to do in the computer, or just what you want to physically turn the knobs on. I would say that there is no right or wrong first purchase. I think that everybody is going to have purchases that they end up regretting. Everybody's going to have purchases that they wish that they did years and years ago. Set a goal on some piece of hardware that you want, figure out why you want that, and then grab it and learn everything about it, and that's really all you need. How do you keep music fun and not let it just become work? Sometimes it is just work. Like, sometimes I am tired, I'm feeling a little bit burnt, but I have projects that I need to do, I have sessions I have to come to, and it can just be work. That's okay. I think that you're allowed to feel like, okay, I'm going to work today. I need to figure out how to turn it on for the artist or for the client. And sometimes that passion is much less than others. I think at the end of the day, I am just obsessed with music. I listen to music all the time. I want to make music all the time. I love making music for artists. I love making music for myself. I love making music that nobody's ever going to hear. And so for me, music started as a hobby way before it was ever the idea of like a viable career. So I'm not too worried about just feeling like I fall out of love with music. If I ever feel like I'm getting burnt out and getting a little bit bitter and getting a little bit like, it's feeling too much like a job, I'm probably just going to take a little bit of time off, let myself rest, maybe make something super artistic and creative and personal, take a little bit of time away from booking projects and then just come back and feel completely refreshed. Very similar to what I said earlier in the video about like burning out. At the end of the day, if this is your job, I think that you should treat it as a job. You should be respectful, dependable, reliable. But if you're losing the passion, then it's time for you to find another job, for sure. Because you don't want every project that you ever do to literally just feel like it's working a 9 to 5. That will be so miserable, and it will definitely show in the art. Do I recommend selling beats on online platforms like BeatStars, Airbit? I've actually never done that. That's really big in like the hip hop community. I have friends that have made really good livings doing that. For me, I don't like having a bunch of unused music sitting, so I would rather people come to me and have an idea for a song and us turn it into something and kind of have the end goal in mind. I'm not a big fan of, for myself at least, putting things on platforms where they're just going to be bought for like 25, 50 bucks. But that's a viable career for most. If you have a bunch of beats sitting around and you want a little bit of spare cash and you're not really looking to, make a, pretty substantial living immediately, then go ahead, go do it. For me, I don't think it's something that I'll probably ever do, but in an alternate world, there's definitely a chance that I would have done that to start with. I just think it's again, like, what is the goal for your music? Do you want it to be used by 1,000 people? Do you want it to be used by one person? Do you want it to go out into the world? Do you want to keep it for yourself? I think those websites can be good to get a couple bucks here and there. I think that they're a little hard to make a living off of because the prices are so low and they're so saturated with so many people selling that you do have to be careful that you're not just selling your favorite beat for 50 bucks and then on to the next one. So that's kind of where I sit with BeatStars and Airbit and all of those other kind of like royalty-free, one-time purchase sites. But I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Do you have a favorite tutorial that you've done in your career? Big fan, much love. Thank you. I don't know, honestly. I really, like, the one that I always come back to is one of the first weekend ones that we did, and I think that's also because it was one of our biggest videos ever, if not our biggest video ever, and I think that one turned out so well, but I'll have favorites. I feel like every week that I make a video, I'm like, this one's my favorite. I did a video on some Hazel rig units that they sent me, and I love the production value. I thought it was such a good video, and it got like one of the smallest amount of views on our entire channel. So sometimes the ones that I feel the most proud about because we do B-roll, I write them super specifically, we have really good audio examples. Sometimes those end up being my favorite and then not being the most popular ones on the channel, where then we have something like the, 10 things that every producer should buy that's under $25, which is a great video, but it was so easy to make. It wasn't something that I was like, holy moly, I crushed this. Get 100,000 views. So a lot of the time, my favorite videos may not be the ones that end up like blowing up and doing the craziest on the channel. A lot of the time, my favorites are the ones that feel a little bit strange to be on the channel. They might be like a gear review or like a super specific tip or technique. And I put a lot of passion and care into those videos, and they're not the ones that, blow up and bring in new subscribers. That's fine. I try to, on the channel, do things that are really fulfilling for me, things that are super helpful for others, things that are going to entertain people that maybe have never heard of make pop music. That's kind of our goal. But if I had to pick a favorite, creatively, maybe the weekend one. And outside of that, probably some like obscure gear review video that we've done. We've got time for maybe a couple more. I'm going to try to answer these pretty quickly. What is the best way to contact artists you want to work with? I think if they're bigger artists, you're going to need to contact their manager, and you're probably going to need to have some kind of management or following as well. But the best way for me to connect with artists is literally follow them, talk to them, be in their DMs, just kind of become really friendly with them. And then they'll probably find out that you're a music producer. You have some kind of background in music. Maybe they invite you to a session. Maybe they invite you out to a show and guest list you. It's just about making those long-term relationships and not really ever expecting to work with them, but being really grateful if you do get the chance to. Other than that, having a manager and publisher that can kind of be like, hey, Austin wants to do this session with XYZ. Are they ever free, or are they going to be in Orlando or whatever? That's super, super helpful. Other than that, just be nice, be a good hang, and make friends in the industry. Maybe talk about how to know when the ideas are good. I think that you should trust yourself. At the end of it, like, it doesn't take me 5 seconds to hear something and be like, that's sick. Or hear something and be like, that is not it. I can turn on the radio and be like, that's a fire song, or I'm never really interested in hearing that again within like 10 or 15 seconds. I think it's really just knowing your ear, trusting your gut, and understanding that you should make whatever you want, because at the end of the day, I'm never going to make a song that everybody in the world likes, and I'm probably never going to make a song that everybody in the world hates. So trust my ear, trust my gut, make something, feel good about it, and put it out in the world. Should I EQ or De-Ess before or after compression on a vocal? I think you should do either, neither, or both. I think that you should understand how the signal flow works. And so if you're hitting a compressor and you feel like your vocal has a little bit too much low end, maybe you EQ that out before the compressor. If that compressor is really bringing out the sibilants, maybe De-Ess it a little bit before the compressor. After you compress it, if you feel like it's better, but now the mids feel a little bit muddy, after the compressor, add an EQ. If you feel like after there's still a little bit of sibilants, add a de-esser. I don't think that there's a right and wrong answer. A lot of the time, I'll EQ before, and then afterwards, I'll still EQ and De-Ess. But there is no right or wrong. I think just use your ears and use your taste when you're mixing and understand the signal flow of input, tweak a sound, output, tweak a sound, so on down the line. Whether it's 2 inserts, 12 inserts, whatever. What happens if you record vocals on an MP3, not a WAV? MP3s are generally just low quality. They're not lossless. MP3s also will encode basically a millisecond or two of, sometimes it's even like a 64th note of a little gap in the middle. So I don't take files in MP3 unless there is literally no other option. I'm always taking WAV or FLAC or some kind of lossless file. There really is no reason that you should be mixing with MP3s unless the artist or producer just wasn't paying attention, deleted their file, and can never get the waves again. How do you keep getting ideas for songs to write? Where do you usually start with lyrics? For me, like I said before, it's just about taking in experiences, shows, movies, my life, my friend's life, emotions that everybody has, what I'm feeling in my journal, just things that today I'm feeling sad. I'm going to write about that, but here's kind of a cool spin I can, put on it. Maybe I can do it through a metaphor, or maybe I can personify a character for that story. It's just about trying to take a relatable emotion or a relatable experience and then put your own personal taste on it, put your own sauce on it to where it's not just the same, Mad Lib style drag and drop breakup anthem. Maybe you find something that's really creative, or you find a tagline and then you can write the whole song about that. I think that that's kind of my process, is start with the general, narrow into really, really specific and personal, and then figure out how to kind of interweave those throughout a song with verses and choruses and bridges, etc. Neumann or Sony mics? This is a great question. I've only used one Sony mic, and it's the C800. That is my favorite mic that I've ever used over Telefunken, Neumann, literally any brand. However, Neumann has some amazing mics. U87 is a classic. U47 is a classic if you can get the, super, super, super vintage one. I think out of all the Neumanns, if I were going to get one for my studio, I'm probably going to get the M149. So for me, it's not better or worse. It's just, what's the song that you're singing on or doing guitar on? What is the source? What is the song? And then what captures that the best? I think that every producer over the course of time should build a mic locker for, male vocals, female vocals, rock vocals, acoustic guitar, overheads on drums. I don't think that there is one mic that is the best mic. For me and what I do the most, the C800 is perfect for that. However, if I'm recording, a snare drum, I'm not using that. I'm probably going to use the Loudness snare mic or an SM57 or an Audix or something like that. So there is no best mic. It's all just, personal preference and what you need. And this will be my last question. It is the most used piece of gear in my studio. Outside of my computer and something really obvious like a MIDI keyboard or a microphone, I use a lot of guitars in my studio. I would say my Fender Strat out of all of my guitars gets the most use. Recently, I've been using a 12-string Yamaha all the time on everything. I write a bunch of stuff on it. Outside of the really, really general, generic, speakers, computer, interface, mic, probably the Fender Strat. That ends up on 90% of records that have guitar in my studio. But that's going to do it for this Q&A. We had a couple other questions that we didn't answer, but a lot were kind of repeats. So if there is a question that you asked that I didn't answer, let me know in the comments down below, and I will try to answer it down there for you. Other than that, if y'all want me to do another Q&A like this in the future, just let me know. I'll always post them on our Instagram, Make Pop Music, so follow us over there. And make sure that you comment within the first 3 days of this video being posted, just to have a chance to win any sample pack, preset pack, or MIDI pack from our website, Make Pop Music. That is the best place to go support us. We have a ton of stuff over there. Choruses, sample packs, preset packs, bunch of free content. There is a link for all of that in the description, but I will be back next week with more content. Next week, we might be doing a how to make a song like Tate McRae, so keep your eyes peeled for that. And then after that, we have a really, really special video that we have been needing to do for a while. So make sure you subscribe if you're not already. We have great stuff coming up. I'll see you guys in the near future. Much love. Peace.